Well, chapters 3 and 4 are out. They've been out, actually. And they were truly incredible. Anyway, with that over, we've entered a new era of the Deltarune Theriosphere. A new age of analysis. No longer do we worry about things like Kris Night or piles of Azrael's dust. Now, we get to worry about the real things, the heavy hitters. Like, what the heck even happened? Seriously, it's as if the game's scope narrowed and expanded at the same time. I didn't even know it was possible for a writer to do that. Without doing a terrible job, that is. Regardless, the mass extinction event of the drop chapters has disposed of the archaic theories of old and replaced them with a new biosphere, a blank canvas, ready to be inhabited by all manners of nasty new theories. Speaking of nasty new theories, I think I got one. While playing through the new chapters for the first time, I thought of a somewhat reasonable explanation for why the night is the way they are. An explanation I haven't really heard anyone else touch on in detail, at least at the time of recording. As all good video essays do, I'm just going to drop it on you first, and then explain why I think it's the way it is in detail later. Ready? I think that the night is soulless. I think that they don't have a soul, at least, not presently. And, if you'll bear with me, I think I can show you why. Before we really drill into why I think the night's soulless, we gotta cover the basics first. So, what I refer to as a soul is that little heart-shaped thing. In the context of the game's world, souls are functionally the containerized form of your being, all packaged up and ready for transport. Souls exist in Undertale as well, and it's unclear what differences there are from what's in Deltarune. Considering monster funerary traditions are similar, I think it's a semi-safe assumption to use Undertale's soul logic here, since it hasn't been touched on in Deltarune except for a single book that doesn't say too much. There are two kinds of souls, the first being those of humans. Human souls are right-side-up hearts that come in all kinds of exciting colors. They're also astonishingly robust and could even persist after the death of their host body. Jury's still out if it works the other way around. The second kind is a monster soul, which is a universally point-side-up white heart that all monsters are said to have. These suckers, in contrast to human souls, are made of tissue paper and wisps of gossamer. They're insanely fragile and fall apart if you so much as breathe on them. Oh yeah, and we know apparently from Undertale, humans can absorb the souls of monsters, and monsters can absorb the souls of humans. In the case of a monster, this turns them into an extremely powerful beast. But no same species soul absorbing, no siree, that's not allowed. Does this apply to Deltarune? We're gonna find out, I'm afraid. Important to note is that the amount of lore dumping Toby's provided in how Deltarune's world works is very limited. We know that in Undertale, monsters are beings of tangible magic, while the reality in Deltarune is muddied, to say the least. We don't even know if the funny little white soul thing in monsters have going on is so relevant here in Deltarune. So, in order to proceed with this, I'm going to make the assumption that monsters have souls in Deltarune. I think this is a sane assumption to make. Cool? Moving on. What if you didn't have one? Well, in Undertale at least, this turns into a sociopathic creature that doesn't really have any attachment to the narrative. But in Deltarune, it's unclear. It's heavily implied that when Kris pops this out and shoves this into a couch cushion, they become soulless. Suddenly, they're not receiving orders from a higher power anymore, it can act entirely out of their own will. But Chapter 4 revealed to us that soulless Kris sounds exactly like the normal Kris. You can take it several ways, but considering the theme of control and helplessness the game tends to impose on them, I think that this is just the fact that Kris isn't being told to do anymore. They aren't being controlled, they've temporarily cut their strings. Note that the exact identity of what we are is unclear as well. Our soul is our connection to the world of Deltarune, and we legitimately don't know if this connection was done by usurping control over Kris's soul, or if we were injected into awaiting soulless Kris. Based on the fact that our friend Dr. Gaster was in the process of whipping up a body from scratch for us to inhabit before he got interrupted, I think the facts lean more towards that the second voice just shunted us into Kris instead of the vessel. so they were probably soulless for a hot minute for the events of the game. There's a couple more pieces of evidence supporting this idea, but the next question is more important, and the answer to this one frankly doesn't matter, so we'll just move on. Can you live without a soul? As mentioned previously, Flowey's existence seems to imply this is the case. But then again, he's a determination-injected, dust-covered flower, and shouldn't really be part of the question. And, you know, he's an Undertale, not Deltarune. Looking at Kris's actions, I think so? I think so. Whatever their deal is, whatever they are, Kris is totally capable of running a marathon on the night and completely mitigating whatever horrible things you do in the weird route. They can also play 5th dimensional chess and set up whatever the hidden plot TV world was about. And don't forget, they can bang out some killer tunes on the piano as well. Either way, they're capable, and while they might trip after having you reinserted in Chapter 4, I think this is just them readjusting to your control. Honestly though, we don't know for sure, and we probably won't know. Noelle does mention that Kris, that is, soulless Kris, the real Kris, sounds weak and shaky to her in the weird route. This implies that not having the soul in weakens them, but since it's the weird route, we don't know if this is just because they've been traumatized too. It's all so unclear. So, my takeaway from this whole thing is that I think it's possible for a human to strive without a soul in the world of Deltarune. At least, so long as you properly remove it first. Add it to the list. This is the main stretch of the soulless knight theory. The implication of the maybe that humans can strive without their soul extends to monsters as well. But I think it makes sense in the context of what's to come. Now, we're going to talk about the knight. There's no shortage of attention on this guy, and that's for a good reason. The knight is really weird. They're not like anything we've seen yet, Lightner or Darkner. First of all, they have an animate light world form. It's generally implied that Darkners are the shadows of objects cast through the anti-light produced by a dark fountain. That is, they're formed from inanimate objects. We have a notable exception in the form of the Darknerized form of the physical incarnation of Fear of Darkness, but calling a Titan a Darkner is kind of a stretch, and I don't want to think about it too hard. Either way, the fact that the knight exists and can move around the light world makes me disbelieve that the knight is a Darkner. So, they're a Lightner then, right? Right, but, well, why are they so weird in the dark world? The knight retains a general shape, but can seemingly twist into a new form at will. Look, I know the Fun Gang can turn to balls too, but like, the knight can turn to a giant antler bird. Closest thing the Fun Gang has to that is when Rousey enters Stool Form R, and he's a Darkner. And no, the horse thing doesn't count. That's a costume. So yeah, the knight's weird. But why are they so strong, too? Unless, I don't know, the knight and Kris spent all their time power leveling by creating and stealing talents for fun. There's no real explanation for why the knight is more capable than any other Lightner. Forget their offense, the knight's defense is insane, and they only get anywhere close to wounded after lowering their guard, potentially on purpose. All I'm saying here is that the knight's dark world behavior is not normal. The fact that the knight can pop open the ribcage and shoot stars out of it is my last straw. This guy ain't a Lightner, aren't they? A Lightner shouldn't be like this. Here's the theory. Well, the second one. This video is technically a theory 3-parter. You've just only seen the first one, that I think the knight is soulless, so far. Introducing theory number 2. I believe that the knight has fundamentally waived their I'm not an object card by entering a dark world while soulless. They aren't like a Lightner or Darkner there, because they legitimately aren't either of them. I believe that soulless Lightners are considered objects by a dark fountain, that they get changed into something blurring the lines between a Lightner and a Darkner. In the knight's case, this is what lends them their tenuous grasp on their physical form, while still allowing them to be a Lightner in the light world. Considering that they're also a shadow crystal holder of some kind, which appears to empower only Darkners to some extent, The fact that they count as a Darkner could very well enable them to use this power. I do want to say that I'm not 100% sold on this idea. This has all the hallmarks of reading too far into something that's not designed with this in mind. Like how he reacted to Mike. But can you see how it makes sense? Is it just me? Well, let's just move on. Because it's time to dive into theory 2. The idea that soulless Lightners become Darkners in the Dark World. Because, if you'll believe me, there's a surprising amount of allusions to their existence. And I think even if theory 1 is wrong, this one's probably correct. One of the great questions of this generation, well, aside from the usual questions, is whether or not a plant is a Lightner. No, I'm not kidding. This distinction is legitimately important for theories 1 and 2. You know that cactus? Yeah, that one. Well, they're a plant. A living thing in the light world that probably doesn't have a soul. We, as the soul, can hear their thoughts in Chapter 3's Dark World. They might also be capable of moving. It's unclear, we really don't know. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that the soul being able to read plants' minds is something that they can't normally do in the light world. But what if? What if the cactus is exactly what the night is right now? A soulless living creature changed with a dark fountain. A soulless Lightner in a dark world. A soulless Darkner. No other dark worlds have plants in them, except its decoration. And considering there's one that's probably going to be plant themed coming up, it would make some sense to hide the fact that soulless Lightners could change with the fountain. It'd add extra pizzazz to Chapter 5. It just so happens that plants are also Lightners by technicality. If that didn't make any sense, which it probably didn't, I sound insane to myself already. Let me rephrase. We only get to see one soulless Lightner in the Dark World. It got changed. The extent to which it changed is hidden behind a curtain, but the logic is there. We have shaky confirmation that this theory is sound. If this does end up being a relevant plot point later, a writer could tease this concept before it gets revealed. So cool, plants are Lightners, right? But are Lightners Lightners? Well, yeah, but Chapter 4 does something weird. We get introduced to Gerson. Sorry, the old man. And he, uniquely, is a Lightner. Or well, what's left of one. The old man is an incredibly powerful Darkner, who just so happens to be completely lacking in the soul department. Or the body department. While he may no longer be alive, he's a non-traditional Darkner, one that's patterned after the memory of a loved one. The Dark Fountain brought him back, at least for a little bit. Now, I don't think the night is a piles of Azrael's dust kind of situation. I still think they're a living person that's soulless. But we can see that the logic Dark Worlds rely on is kind of weird. There's more to it than it seems, and if I were gonna drop on the reader that the secret big bad guy is something weird themselves without it coming out of nowhere, it'd be logical to condition you to it first with the old man. At least, get you warmed up to the idea. The last piece of non-vibes-based evidence for this theory is the caller. Well, not who they are, but what they say. Huh. You need the soul for something in the Dark World? And that, without it, Kris will... ... The caller raises some good points here. Kris always takes sexual care to reinsert their soul before they enter a dark world. To our knowledge, they never enter one without it. Granted, saying to our knowledge doesn't really work here since we're the thing they need, and we would literally never know if Kris snuck out to, I don't know, go hug Rousey every night while we were stuck in the birdcage. We do know they've entered a dark world of their own volition, at least once, but that was before we were connected. Anyway, considering that the soul gives you in-universe incredibly potent dodging abilities for the whole squad, it could be that. Or it could be the fact that the Knight's about to be the world's worst boss ever and drop a Titan on you. Or, and this is a stretch, it could have been a reminder that soulless people get turned into things like the Knight. There's a lot of ambiguity here, but it's just basically as far as we can go. Here's the deal. The more you get into the weeds, the more you get into a theory, the more dramatically you can fly clean off the rails and out the cliffside. You can get something right, and then the more you keep taking this thing you get right, the more you get further and further incorrect. Not that I think I'm 100% right, but it's mildly dangerous to keep taking things further than the logical extremes. And so, it'd be a good thing just to stop here and take Theory 1, Theory 2 as the end result. So, to summarize. And yeah, video essay clear. Time to go, I don't know, actually record footage of my own, since I thought taking 4,466 screenshots was totally a replacement for video footage. Always good to leave it off on a strong note. Going any further might mean I get it more wrong. Here's the deal. I didn't come all the way just to wimp out the last second. I didn't come all the way just to say, oh, I don't want to be wrong. That's so bad. I should just stop here. I'm recording this after I've already finished part 1 and 2. I've watched the video already. I know what we all want. We want to take this somewhere, to get something out of it, to combine a whole bunch of other theories into some horrible blob, done in such a way that it could actually tell us something about the narrative. But to where it's far more likely to be incorrect. I cut a whole segment from this video that touched on exactly what being correct means, and basically, the whole difference between being right and wrong is whether or not you can more plausibly build other theories off of it. There's nothing wrong with being wrong here. In some ways, I kind of think being wrong is a noble act. Even if you don't get something right, you can bring it to the table for other people to analyze and reflect on. You shouldn't be afraid to be wrong. So yeah, I'm going forward with this. If I'm not wrong already, I'm going to make sure of it. If you want to preserve my, well, whatever molecule of credibility I have as some random person who resurrected their old Google account to post their deranged Deltarune slop on, you can click off now. But for those who are staying, I warned you. We're gonna go a bit crazy here. Yeah, I'm a Death Knight believer. I think it's by far the most believable Knight candidate, and it'll be the most interesting to choose plot-wise. I even thought this was the case before the chapters dropped, which means I'm cooler than you, Kris Knighters. It's okay though. Don't let that make you think I'm right. Just look at this atrocious MS Paint PNG I made back in the Multi-Knight. Gaster is real and can hurt you, and escapism is totally the theme of the game days. Fun times, weren't they? So, yeah, I'm super biased towards Death Knight here. Full disclosure. But look, we can actually get some pretty cool things out of it. One of the stranger points regarding Death Knight is why the heck December Holiday, someone who seems to be pretty strong-willed, gets turned into an actual Dark World monster who swoons her sister's love interest, and a poor sapient stepstool that happens to look like Azrael. I mean, that's just dangerously uncool. Sure, they don't swoon Kris, which is kind of nice, but some little details imply that Kris is actually in some kind of business relationship with a knight, which actually makes it worse. Like, imagine if your boss just dropped this on you, and then told you, yeah, have fun, before going to go hide in the closet like a loser. This guy sucks. If I had to take orders from this fraud, I'd remove my soul too. Anyway, the good explanation for us relies on eating another theory. I think that Des is indeed the voice in the code, and that the unused script is retelling events that happened in the past. Only once all the chapters drop will we get the final piece of the puzzle to prove whatever it's trying to tell us. This is as a whole, I think, fairly credible. Anyway, I think the conclusion we can make, I came upon something similar for the chapters dropped, is that the voice is Des, and she got lost in a dark world. If you take a step back, dark worlds are absurdly dangerous. If you're in one and someone closes the door on you and you aren't a human, you're probably permanently stuck there. Seriously, you can't open the door unless you seal the fountain, and you can't seal a fountain without a human soul. Very easy to get stuck in there and lost for all eternity. I don't think it's that unlikely that Des got smoked by some random chip damage or had to cut a deal with something to get out of the pickle she found herself in. Either result could have very well come at the cost of her soul. And somewhere between her getting stranded and appearing in Chapter 3, I think Des experienced some kind of mentally destabilizing event that led to her becoming the Knight. What this is, I don't know. It's outside the scope of this theory, and there's no evidence for this. This is just that vibes-based analysis I mentioned earlier. It feels like something that would be appropriate. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I think Carol is the mysterious caller. All the other caller candidates fall short of explaining, I'll be right there. And she seems aware of the soul, not indirectly, a trait which no one else in Hometown has. Why does the weird route end with her calling Kris without going shaky black text mode on him? Dude, I got no idea. Let's just forget about it. Either way, if you believe in Carol Caller, it gives us some extra material to work with. Specifically, the line of all time. Police sacrifice next week. That's really, really strange. Why would the mayor want to sacrifice a police officer? Especially one that's actually popular in town. Well, I think Carol's awareness of the soul goes further than just knowing about it. She clearly knows something, and considering Kris will move heaven and earth to ensure people don't know about the soul, even entirely taking blame for your actions in the weird route. Whatever the evil gang has planned for the soul seems to be important. More important than anything. I think Carol's trying to do something with either our soul or souls in general. And I don't think Carol is 100% evil. I don't think a Toby Fox has it in him to put a completely one-dimensional, cold, dead, black-hearted character in the story he's been trying to tell for over a decade now. And considering that Carol used to hang out with the Dreamers, and that Toriel now protests even the use of her name at church, I can say with confidence that something changed. What caused her to change is almost assuredly the loss of her daughter. I think she's the kind of person who'd do anything to bring her daughter back. I think she's well aware of what happened to Des, and that Kris's promise with her is that they'd find her, that they'd save her. If Des lost her soul, just finding her wouldn't be as simple as busily locating her and dragging her back home. And I think Carol would have done that already if she could. Whether or not Des or the Knight is in complete cooperation with his plan is a mystery. I'm not even going to bother with it. But for what reason would the Knight try to abduct someone and bring him into the bunker? And why would Carol be on board with a police sacrifice? So, as teased earlier, there's a third theory in this video. This is because, well, like the other theories, it can technically stand on its own. However, I like this one a whole lot less than the other two. It's kind of the middle child of this video. Ready? Okay, I hate to say it. I don't want to say it. But I've had this thought rattling around my head the entire time making this video. What if the reason why the whole abduction thing happens is so that they can perform open heart surgery in the shelter? That's right. Carol Holiday is going to perform the world's first Dark World soul transplant in Dr. Gaster's cutting-edge state-of-the-art operating room, under the careful tutelage of resident soul removal expert Kris Dreamer. It's all gonna happen. Carol, we're gonna bring your daughter back. Yeah, something like that. Look, man, I don't know anymore. We can't predict anything in this stupid game. I give up. But regardless, I don't think this is the promised fever dream ending for Deltarune, just so we're clear. Unless Toby Fox fell asleep watching House or something, which would suck. I do think there's a good possibility this is what Carol's trying to do, and this is what her character arc, if you can call it that, culminates in. And I really don't think this goes well for the evil gang. Haven't mentioned it yet, but I actually think it's worse than Des just being soulless, and that she's had something literally implanted into or substituting her soul, like a thorn ring. She has a hole in her chest, sure, but why does it look like there's something in there? It's not empty. That's a question I'm quite unwilling to answer. Sorry, I'm done. This video's gone long enough. I have like, I don't know, 5 days to create this entire video, and it's coming a little close already. But yeah, that marks the end of the video. You made it! For real this time. Thanks for listening to the first video on this channel, and I apologize for how rough this one is. This is the third video project ever made in my life, so you're gonna have to bear with me here. I'm just trying to create something I like to see, and well, it's kinda hard to explain my stance in a game that has plot threads and connections that look like this. But feel free to comment whatever, I'll almost certainly read it. And I'll make a couple more of these videos, so subscribe if you want to see more like that before I give into my dark urges and finish up the original project that this video derailed. That is, beating Star Sector using only missiles. Yes, I play more than one video game. You have to as a Deltarune fan, otherwise we'd have died of starvation during the Great Rate of 2021 to 2025. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your day.